The noise started sometime after midnight. Daniel woke up suddenly when the animals outside began making strange sounds. The cows were restless, moving nervously, and the dogs kept barking toward the back of the farm. At first, he thought it was a wild animal that sometimes happened near the fields, but this felt different. The ground itself seemed to shake for a moment, followed by a heavy metallic sound. Then everything went quiet, too quiet. Daniel stayed awake for a long time, listening, but the wind slowly covered every other sound. Eventually, he fell back asleep, telling himself he would check in the morning. When the sun finally rose, the farm looked normal from a distance. The sky was clear after the night's cold wind. But as soon as Daniel stepped outside, he knew something was wrong. The fence behind the barn was broken. Wood pieces were scattered across the mud, and deep marks crossed the ground like something heavy had been dragged through the field. His animals refused to go near that side. Even the dogs stopped at a distance, whining softly. Daniel grabbed his jacket and walked toward the back of the farm. With every step, the marks became larger. The soil was pressed down in shapes that looked almost like footprints, but far too big to belong to any human. His heart began to beat faster. Then he saw her. At first, his mind could not understand what he was looking at. A massive shape lay behind the old storage shed, partly hidden by broken fencing. As he moved closer, the shape became clear. A woman. A giant woman. She was tied down, with thick metal cables fixed into the ground. The metal looked strange, smooth and dark, nothing like farm equipment. Her arms were restrained, and one side of her face was covered in dirt. Long hair spread across the ground around her. Daniel froze. This was impossible. People were not supposed to look like this. She was easily 3 times his size. For a moment, fear told him to run back to the house and call for help. Then her eyes opened. They focused on him immediately, calm and steady. Not angry, not afraid, relieved. "You finally came," she said softly. Her voice was deep but gentle, like distant thunder. Daniel stepped back without thinking. I don't know you," he said. The giant woman gave a small, tired smile. "I know," she replied, "but I know you." The words made his stomach tighten. She tried to move, but the cables held her down. Daniel noticed marks on her skin where the metal pressed too tightly. Faint, glowing lines moved slowly under her skin, like soft light flowing through water. "What happened to you?" he asked before he could stop himself. "I was captured," she said, "but not by accident." That answer made even less sense. The air felt strange around her, warmer than the morning air. The animals behind him suddenly grew louder again, then quickly went silent, as if they sensed something Daniel could not. The giant woman looked toward the trees beyond the farm. "They will return soon," she said quietly. Daniel followed her gaze but saw nothing, just empty fields and distant forest. "Who will return?" he asked. She looked back at him, her expression serious now. "The ones who believe I belong to them." Daniel felt fear crawl up his spine. He had lived a simple life until now, fixing fences, feeding animals, worrying about weather and crops. None of this belonged in his world. Yet here it was. He noticed something else then. The cables holding her were not only restraints. Small lights blinked along the metal, pulsing slowly, like a signal being sent somewhere. Tracking her, watching her, the giant woman studied his face carefully, as if measuring his reaction. "I waited for someone like you," she said. Daniel shook his head. "You're wrong. I'm just a farmer." Her eyes softened slightly. "No," she said. "You're someone who helps before asking why." Before Daniel could respond, a faint humming sound echoed across the fields. Both of them looked toward the sky. Far in the distance, something moved above the trees, small, fast, and mechanical. The giant woman closed her eyes for a moment, as if confirming her fears. "They found me faster than I expected," she whispered. Daniel's pulse quickened. He did not understand what was happening, but one thing was clear. Whatever this was, it was already too late to walk away. Then she looked at him again and spoke words that made his blood run cold. "I allowed myself to be captured," she said calmly, "because I needed to find you." The wind moved through the broken fence behind them, carrying the sound of something approaching from far away. and Daniel realized his quiet farm was no longer safe. Daniel did not move for several seconds after she spoke. The words stayed in the air between them. I needed to find you. Nothing about this made sense. He looked around his farm, at the broken fence, the empty fields, the quiet morning that suddenly felt dangerous. I think you made a mistake, Daniel said slowly. I'm not the person you're looking for. The giant woman watched him carefully. Her eyes were calm, almost certain. My name is Kayla, she said. And no, I did not make a mistake. Daniel hesitated before stepping closer. Now that the fear had settled a little, he noticed how injured she really was. The metal cables were tight around her arms and legs, and the ground beneath her was torn from struggle. The strange glowing lines under her skin moved slowly, but sometimes they flickered like weak light. Who did this to you? He asked. Kayla's expression changed slightly. She looked away toward the forest again. People who want what I carry, she answered. Knowledge, power, control. That answer only made Daniel more confused. He walked around her carefully, studying the restraints. The metal did not look human-made. Small lights blinked along the surface, sending quiet pulses. It felt less like chains and more like a machine designed to hold something dangerous. But Kayla did not look dangerous. She looked tired. Why me? Daniel finally asked. Why say you were looking for me? Kayla took a slow breath. My people observe other worlds before making contact. We search for individuals who act without reward. Individuals who protect life, even when no one is watching. Daniel frowned. That doesn't mean anything. It means everything, she said gently. She explained that for years her species had watched humanity from a distance. Not governments or armies, individuals. People living normal lives. She told him about moments he barely remembered. Helping a lost traveler during winter, caring for injured animals, refusing to sell his land when companies try to force him out. Daniel felt uneasy hearing his own life described by a stranger. You've been watching me? He asked. Only to understand, Kayla replied. Not to harm. The idea made him uncomfortable. But before he could argue, a sharp crackle came from his pocket radio. Loud static filled the air, followed by short repeating tones. The same sound he sometimes heard during storms, but clearer now. Kayla tensed immediately. They are searching again, she said. Daniel turned off the radio, but the uneasy feeling remained. He noticed something else while standing near the chains. A small device was attached near one of the restraints, half buried in mud. A red light blinked slowly. A beacon. They're tracking you through this, Daniel said. Kayla nodded. Yes. Then why didn't you remove it? I tried, she answered quietly. It almost killed me. Silence followed. The wind moved through the grass, carrying distant engine sound from somewhere far down the road. Daniel suddenly realized how exposed his farm was. No neighbors close enough to help. No easy way out. You said you allowed yourself to be captured, Daniel said carefully. What? Kayla looked at him again, and this time there was something heavier in her voice. Because my people believe humanity may become a threat, she said. I believed humanity could become something else. Daniel did not like the sound of that. And I was the test, he asked. Kayla did not answer directly. Instead, she said, if someone like you chooses to help, it changes what my people believe. The meaning settled slowly in his mind. This was bigger than one injured stranger. Bigger than his farm. Before Daniel could speak again, a distant vehicle engine echoed clearly across the fields. Much closer this time. Both of them turned toward the sound. Dust rose at the end of the long dirt road leading to the farm. Kayla's voice dropped to a whisper. They are early. Daniel felt his chest tighten. Whoever was coming was not stopping to ask questions. And suddenly, helping her was no longer a simple choice. It was the beginning of something he could no longer control. The sound of engines grew louder as the vehicle moved closer to the farm. Daniel stood still, watching the dust rise at the end of the road. His mind raced, trying to think of something logical, something normal. But nothing about this situation was normal anymore. Behind him, Kayla shifted slightly against the metal restraints. The movement caused pain, and the faint light under her skin flickered again. They will not speak first, she said quietly. They will take. Daniel looked back at her. Who are they? Kayla hesitated, then answered. Not soldiers, not leaders. People who believe power should belong to the strongest. The engine stopped somewhere near the front gate. Doors opened. Voices carried across the open field, low and controlled. Whoever had arrived knew how to move quietly. Daniel's heart pounded. He had never been part of anything dangerous before. He was a farmer, not a fighter. But walking away now meant leaving her to people who clearly did not care if she was hurt. He moved closer to the chains again, studying them more carefully. The metal hummed softly, reacting to Kayla's movements. Can you stand if I free you? He asked. Kayla shook her head slowly. Not far. My body is still weak. That made the decision harder. Footsteps crunched on gravel near the barn. Someone was already searching the property. Daniel quickly covered part of the chains with loose tarp and broken wood, hoping from a distance it would look like storm damage. It was not a good plan, but it was the only one he had. The footsteps stopped nearby. A man's voice called out, calm but firm. Hello? Anyone here? Daniel stepped away from the shed and walked toward the sound, forcing himself to stay calm. Two men stood near the barn, dressed in dark clothes without markings. Their posture was alert, their eyes scanning everything. We're looking for something that may have fallen during the storm, one of them said. You seen anything unusual? Daniel shook his head. Just broken fences. The men studied him carefully. One of them looked toward the back fields, where Kayla was hidden. For a moment, Daniel thought everything was over. Then the man nodded slowly. Storm caused a lot of problems around here, he said. But neither of them left immediately. They walked around slowly, observing tire marks, footprints, the damaged ground. They knew something had happened here. After a long and tense minute, they returned to their vehicle and drove away. Daniel did not relax. He knew they would come back. When he returned behind the shed, Kayla was watching the road silently. They are patient, she said. They will wait until night. Daniel felt frustration rising. Then we can't stay here. Kayla looked at him carefully. Helping me will make you their enemy. He let out a short breath. I think that already happened. For the first time, Kayla smiled slightly. Not with relief, but with understanding. As the sun began to set, the farm felt different. The air grew heavy again, like before storm. Daniel packed water and supplies without fully knowing what his plan was. Every sound made him turn his head. When darkness finally came, lights appeared at the edge of the fields. Not one vehicle this time. Several. They moved slowly, surrounding the area without noise. Engines turned off one by one. Shadows moved between trees. Kayla's voice dropped to a whisper. They will try to take me alive. Daniel's hands tightened into fists. He looked at the chains again. The blinking beacon still sent its signal into the night sky. If he did nothing, they would take her. If he helped her, there would be no going back. A sudden beam of light swept across the field, stopping just short of the shed. Voices shouted orders. Daniel realized the truth in that moment. This was never just about finding her. It was about choosing a side. And as footsteps began moving closer through the darkness, he knew the next decision he made would change everything. The lights moved closer through the darkness. Daniel could hear boots crushing gravel and dry grass. Quiet voices gave short orders. Whoever surrounded the farm knew exactly what they were doing. They were not rushing. They were waiting for the right moment. Behind the shed, Kayla's breathing had become slow and uneven. The glow under her skin flickered like a dying flame. They will not leave without me, she said softly. Daniel looked at the chains again. The metal cables still hummed quietly, the small beacon blinking red into the night. Every second it stayed active, it told the hunters exactly where she was. He knew what he had to do. Stay still, he whispered. Using tools from the barn, Daniel struck the locking point of the restraint. The metal resisted at first, stronger than anything he had seen before. Sparks flew as he forced the tool deeper into the mechanism. Outside, footsteps stopped. Someone had heard the noise. Movement behind the structure, a voice called out. Daniel worked faster. His hand shook, but he did not stop. With one final hit, the first restraint snapped open. The hum of the device changed immediately. Kayla gasped quietly as feeling returned to her arm. "You should go," she told him. "They will not harm you if you leave now." Daniel shook his head. Too late for that. He broke the second restraint just as bright lights flooded the back of the shed. Voices shouted. Shadows rushed forward. "Stop! Step away from her!" Kayla struggled to sit up, but her strength was nearly gone. Daniel grabbed the beacon attached to the chain and pulled it free from the mud. The red light blinked faster, warning signals flashing. Without thinking, he threw it as far as he could into the dark field. Immediately, several hunters ran toward the new signal. For a moment, confusion spread through their lines. "Move," Daniel said urgently. Kayla pushed herself up. Even injured, her size made the ground tremble slightly. She leaned heavily against the shed as they moved toward the open field behind the farm. They did not get far. More lights appeared ahead, blocking the path. The hunters had already predicted escape routes. Dark figures stepped forward, weapons raised, but held carefully. They wanted her alive. Kayla stopped walking. Daniel felt her hand gently push him behind her. "No more running," she said quietly. The air around her began to change. The faint, glowing lines under her skin grew brighter, spreading across her arms and shoulders like flowing energy. The wind around them shifted, dust lifting from the ground. Daniel felt warmth against his face. "What are you doing?" he asked. "What I should have done earlier," she replied. The hunters shouted warnings, but none of them fired. The light around Kayla intensified, humming with power. For the first time, she did not look weak. She looked ancient, powerful, not like a prisoner, but something far beyond human understanding. Then she stepped forward. A wave of energy pushed outward, knocking several hunters back. Lights flickered. Equipment failed. Vehicles shut down one by one. The air vibrated with a deep sound that Daniel felt in his chest more than heard. But the effort cost her. The light faded quickly. Kayla's legs gave way beneath her. Daniel rushed forward as she collapsed into the dirt. The glow disappeared completely, leaving only silence behind. The hunters slowly stood again, confused and cautious, unsure if she would rise once more. She didn't. Daniel knelt beside her, panic rising. "Kayla, stay with me." Her eyes opened slightly. She looked at him, peaceful despite the chaos around them. "You chose compassion," she whispered. "That was the test." Before he could answer, her eyes closed. The night became still again. No light, no movement. The hunters hesitated, unsure whether to approach. Whatever they had just witnessed frightened them more than resistance ever could. Above them, clouds moved away from the moon, and cold light fell across the farm. Daniel realized something terrifying. Kayla had used the last of her strength to protect him, and now she was not moving at all. The farm was silent after the light disappeared. Daniel stayed beside Kayla, his hands shaking as he waited for any sign of movement. The hunters stood at a distance, unsure of what they had just seen. Their equipment had failed, their vehicles shut down, and the strange energy that filled the air moments ago was gone. Only the cold night remained. "Is she alive?" one of the men asked quietly. No one moved closer. Daniel leaned down, listening for her breathing. For a long moment, there was nothing. Her skin no longer glowed. The warmth around her body had faded, and for the first time since he found her, she looked fragile instead of powerful. The leader of the hunters stepped forward carefully. "Step away," he ordered. "She's not your problem anymore." Daniel did not move. Something inside him refused to let strangers take her now. Not after everything that had happened. Not after she protected him instead of saving herself. "She's not yours," Daniel said quietly. The man's expression hardened. "You don't understand what she is." Daniel looked back at Kayla's still face. "Maybe you don't either." For several seconds, no one spoke. The tension in the air felt ready to break. Then one of the vehicles suddenly restarted behind them, its systems slowly coming back online. Radios crackled again. The moment of fear that held the hunters back began to fade. They were preparing to move in. Daniel knew he could not stop them by force. He had no weapons, no power, only time. Suddenly, a low sound came from beneath him. A breath, weak but real. Daniel froze. Kayla's fingers moved slightly against the dirt. The faintest glow returned beneath her skin, soft and steady instead of bright and violent. The hunters noticed too. Some stepped back instinctively. "She's stabilizing," one of them said nervously. Kayla's eyes opened slowly. She looked confused at first, then calm. Her gaze found Daniel, and a small, tired smile appeared. "I told you," she whispered. "Your world is stronger than mine expected." Before anyone could react, the glow beneath her skin spread outward again. But this time it was different. Gentle, controlled. The air vibrated softly, and the tracking systems around the hunters failed once more. Their devices shut down completely. The leader cursed under his breath. Without their equipment, they could not track or contain her safely. After a tense moment, he signaled the others to fall back. "This isn't over," he warned Daniel before retreating. But they left. One by one, the vehicles disappeared down the dirt road, their lights fading into the night. The farm slowly returned to silence. Daniel let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. Kayla remained lying on the ground, recovering. The glow beneath her skin stayed faint but stable. "My body changed," she explained softly. "Earth's environment forced it to adapt. I'm no longer easy to control." Daniel sat beside her, exhausted. "So what happens now?" Kayla looked toward the horizon where morning light was beginning to appear. "Now I choose," she said. Days turned into weeks. The broken fences were repaired. The fields returned to normal. No one came looking again. Without the beacon signal, Kayla had become impossible to track. She stayed hidden near the mountains, healing slowly. Sometimes Daniel brought supplies. Sometimes they simply talked. She learned about human life, small routines, quiet kindness, simple choices that did not exist on her world anymore. Eventually, Kayla sent a message to her people. Not a warning, not a request for rescue. A report. Humans were not defined by strength or technology. They were defined by choice. One human had chosen compassion when no one was watching. And that choice changed everything. On a quiet evening, Kayla stood at the edge of the farm, looking at the sunset. "One day," she said, "our worlds may meet without fear." Daniel smiled faintly. He had never planned to become part of something important. He had only helped someone who needed it. But sometimes that was enough. Because humanity's greatest strength was never power. It was the decision to help, even when the world was not looking.